Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this 10th session of France versus Silicon Valley. So I'm Laurence. I'm the Executive Director of the French American Chamber of Commerce of San Francisco. So we are a non-profit, so based, as our name says, in San Francisco. We build bridges between France and the Bay Area. So we have to do that, we have members, events, and a lot of corporate services. So today, I'm very glad to welcome you all to this session about the e-commerce boom, which is co-organized with our friends and partner, the French first business magazine, Challenge. I also want to thank our speakers, amazing speakers today. They will be introduced to you in a few seconds by Gilles Fontaine, the editor-in-chief of Challenge, who will be the moderator of this session today. I also take a few minutes to thank our sponsors, so Bank of the West, Capgemini, and Salesforce. As we're a nonprofit, it's very important. Their support is very important to us. So enjoy the session. Please leave your comments in the live, and hopefully enjoy the session. And now I can give the floor to Gilles. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. Good morning to all the French guys here in Europe, and good evening to you in San Francisco on the other side of the Atlantic. And it's a great always to have you for now this 10th session, as Laurence just said, dedicated this time to e-commerce. And of course, we had that was a little bit like the fil rouge, as we say in French. The continuation of our conversations of the impact of this crisis, of this pandemic, of this coronavirus crisis. And then we had the opportunity to talk about the impact on education, on of course on business as a whole, and on employment and so on. And of course, e-commerce was a big theme because, of course, the shops had to do their own revolution. Some were already online and had the will of going ahead. Some had to do the revolution in just a very short time. So we have two speakers, great speakers today, covering the whole line. First, of course, as Laurence said, Caroline Tellier. She's with PayPal. She's Senior Director of Southern Europe Markets. Hello to you, Caroline. And Alexandre Erumi, he's the CEO of Prestashop, who provides tools and platforms to help retail. He will tell us, of course, more, but the name is well known on both sides of the Atlantic, and we know the actions that you've been leading for now a few decades. Well, maybe we'll start with you, Caroline. Hello.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
How are you, Caroline?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah, of course, we know PayPal. We're all users of PayPal. We've all been users of PayPal for many years, and it became our habits in some of our transactions, especially international transactions. But this year, this past year, 2020, was very, of course, particular, and you had to do your, let's say, your own revolution in one way. Nobody could predict what just happened, and well, how did you live that from inside? I mean, the change of habits from both customers and retailers, and how did that go for you?
Yeah, so yeah, actually, you're right. The year was very, very special. There is an index we like to track at PayPal, which is the penetration of e-commerce in the total retail sales. And there was a lot of article and analysis about that fast growth. So if you take a market like the US or the UK, the penetration of e-commerce increased from 20-ish% to 30%. France has always lagging a bit behind. So by end of 2019, e-commerce in France was 9.8% of the retail sales, and it's now up to 13%. So still low compared to the level of the UK or the US, which again reached around 30%. But we increased by about 50% the share of online sales among retail, and for us it's an important indicator because the path of the e-commerce is what makes PayPal success, but PayPal is also contributing to that success as we enable more merchants and more consumers to connect and to receive and send money. In about all of the markets where we operate, we have about 15% market share. So PayPal owns about 15% of all transactions made online. So again, that's something we can really play a critical role. And the growth we have seen in the last month has obviously been a great accelerator for PayPal as well. So we've seen a huge growth in our volume. We have accompanied a lot of merchants to go digital. A lot of new users. We've seen a big acceleration in our acquisition of consumers. Seeing more senior people, but also young generation. So many people that were reluctant to go online have switched to online and take advantage of PayPal core value prop of security and trust. I think you are on mute. I don't hear your voice.
Sorry. Yes, I was on mute. Thank you, Caroline. Alexandre, as I was saying, so we see an increase in payments, but in order to pay, you need also to have products, right? And retail. So that was also interesting for you, quite a challenge, I imagine, to have these maybe also new customers for you on board. What changes did you see during that time frame?
Well, it was huge for e-commerce. On top of e-commerce penetration that was booming and explained by Caroline, there was also for sure the growth of e-commerce. In Q2, it was 45% in the US if you accept travel, which was decreasing, and 46% in France year-on-year. So we can see that France and the US evolved the same way and at the same pace. That's interesting to have that in mind as well. On top of the fact that apart from the e-commerce penetration, and so the digitalization of interactions with customers and suppliers for the companies, it was also the digitalization of internal processes. And there was an interesting McKinsey study telling that in a few months or even a few weeks, we speed up about the 3 or 4 years of time, and so that's huge in terms of e-commerce for both US, France, and worldwide, and that's something that we observed at the leading e-commerce platform in Europe and Latam. We've seen a plus 50% new store creation on Prestashop. It was around plus 40% in France, plus 52% in Spain, 67% in Italy, and up to 90% in Latam. So it was also a huge change in terms of e-commerce landscape. There were many new players entering that landscape, and we can see that in that new store creation. But also we've seen more advanced needs or new categories of equipment that were purchased by our merchants when they are purchasing new features or connectors on our own platforms, and to extend the value prop and to extend the user experience that they can offer on the e-commerce websites. So they were investing in the customer experience, online chat, for instance, as well on new logistics solutions, new logistic providers to offer different options to their customers. And also they were searching for ways to be more visible online. As there were more players, they needed to be more visible, and social networks was key as well for that.
And how do you take care of these, brand new customers? The shops for instance. That was the example that was often given here in France. Small bookshops that had to, in a very short time, had to put in place a click and collect solution, or even bigger stores. I mean, how do you take that into account, and how do you take care of these guys? Alexandre, and I'll ask that question to Caroline.
Okay. Well, it's in the end, all the segment of merchants have been improving their e-commerce during that period. So we have great examples of convenience stores in city centers that have been obliged to go online. For instance, in Toulouse, so in the south part of France, we have a shop called Les Tarés du Vrac, selling nuts in the shops, and they were turning online during the first lockdown because they were not able to sell at all in their own stores, and they were we provided starter packs for new stores to go online quicker and alongside with PayPal, by the way, and of course we had also plenty of experts working on Prestashop helping the stores in our open source community. So Les Tarés du Vrac is a great example of those many stores that have been digitized during the lockdown, but there were also incumbent players or even pure players that have been accelerating their e-commerce development. For click and mortar, I'm thinking about Carrefour, which has been part of that development of e-commerce penetration within food retail. It's gained 5 points of penetration in France during the first lockdown, and they were opening new online stores to speed up the supply of their customers. So it was called Les Essentiels by Carrefour, the essentials, to push new uses toward their customers, the ability to buy and to subscribe to prepackaged baskets in order to reduce the time of preparation of those baskets and the shipping of them. So it was also kind of innovation provided by traditional players online, and that's quite interesting to observe that. And all of them was done on Prestashop.
Mm-hmm. On your side,
so on our side, there were three different ways for us to support our merchants. So the first one is helping merchants go online and accelerate their digital transition, and I will come back to that. Just to talk about two other more nascent trends. The second one is accepting digital payment in a safe way in a store. And so we have launched very rapidly after the beginning of the pandemic. We have pushed a new experience for consumers to pay in store touch-free, like contactless, with the QR code. And we have launched that experience in many different countries at the same time, allowing small merchants to print a QR code that PayPal customer can scan with their PayPal application. And to make an instant payment in a completely safe way. So we see a big pickup in the US, but also in Germany, in France. And the third trend was also driving some generosity. So, PayPal is also known for connecting a lot of consumers and a lot of merchants together and, emphasizing the donation, the generosity. And we've seen many industries impacted big time by COVID, for example, festival artists, but also travel and, all the travel ecosystem, the travel guide and all those population to have a PayPal button on their or a PayPal link on their page to get donation from, their clients. So, people could continue supporting them during the pandemic, and they could still, think of a recovery in the future. But just to come back to, our core business and online business. So yes, we've seen a lot of new merchants online, and PayPal is integrated in the, all the shopping carts. So obviously with Prestashop, which is one of our top partners in the region. And so what PayPal also, how PayPal helped those new merchants is in different ways. So we see that there were new barriers to online for consumer, and frankly, trust was important as never before. And PayPal value of trust was our reason to be, the reason why the company was created 20 years ago. And in the last year, we realized that trust was maybe less of an issue because people are used to share credit card details. But with COVID happening and with that fast acceleration of e-commerce, trust was back on the top of the podium of the reasons to use or not use e-commerce websites.
Yeah. Oh, I hope we didn't lose Caroline. Alexandre, are you with me? Or?
On the website.
We can't hear you,
I think there
Caroline.
is a connection issue.
Okay. Can you hear me, Caroline? Hello?
Okay, I'll continue. I don't know if there is a connection issue, but
yes, Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Caroline?
I'll see. So again, trust was critical to convince consumers to make purchase and to switch to online. Then we see two other big trends that were like more reasons to shop more online, which were how to help people get more purchasing power and also sometimes make savings, and also how to reconnect people with authenticity and authentic small business, local small business. And on the purchasing power piece, we launched another product right on time, which was a paying for solution. And you've seen probably a different solution launching paying for in different markets. So PayPal, somehow overnight allowed every PayPal user to get access to a paying for solution in their wallet, directly in their wallet. So giving access to 360 million PayPal user paying for solution with amazing approval rate. So that's also something to give back purchasing power to our user base in most of the markets. And in terms of authenticity, we have seen also a switch to local store. We've seen, about 60% of consumers saying that they change their, purchase habits, willing to go to local store. And for 25% of them, they say they will continue after COVID to have more responsible purchase behavior.
Thank you, Caroline. That was very complete panorama. Back to you, Alexandre. I just want to also to add and remind you that you can at any time ask your question, and we can ask those questions to our two speakers. It's a very interesting thing that the theme of trust, right? It's really fundamental. Of course, on the customer side, you want to know where your money is going and be sure that the transaction will be made securely. On your side, Alexandre, what were the particular efforts that you had to do in order to reassure for instance, the newcomers, or also the incumbents that were already online and had this experience, but needed to go further and expand digitally?
Yes, trust is key for e-commerce. I would say that trust also is now gaining new dimensions, because it's not only trust into payments, it's trust regarding the merchant itself. And it's also interesting to see that now reviews, for instance, product reviews, merchant reviews, are key to build that trust. And I think it's more and more important as we are also speaking about environmental friendly production. So it's also trust about the products, trust about the supply of those products. And that's where, for instance, digital native vertical brands are expanding, building that trust on the way they build their own products. And last but not least, trust will be key as well for e-commerce. So secondhand commerce. How can you track the products? How can you be sure that the product's in good shape, or either from the right brand, and so on. What was key also, as well for merchants, were our ability and their ability to ensure that they can be closer to their customers. I spoke about the visibility, but then it's also about being relevant in the messaging, in the push of those messaging, so through the right communication campaigns, but as well being close to them, because most of them are local, and they are building that trust locally and physically on physical stores, and they have also shifted that way of interacting with the customers thanks to the digital journey and the digital channel they have built with their online store. But I mean that it was key to see that click and collect was especially booming during the second lockdown, end of 2020. Booming in terms of equipment for those online stores, and building those journey between the online store and the physical store. So I mean that omni-channel right now, it's not a buzzword. It's something which is real, with really a typical use case brought by click and collect, and it's been really booming end of last year. And what was not the case in 2019. So we've done some studies with Axel, for instance, about that. And now omnichannel and click and collect is really something which is usual for any store.
Even in France, it became the buzzword. Two buzzwords. We didn't even know the expression about a year ago. But it's really the big thing right now in France, right?
Yeah, exactly. But now it's a reality for some basic use case, at least, and click and collect is part of that. What has been also interesting is that the emergence of local marketplaces. Everybody knows Amazon, Cdiscount in France, Alibaba marketplaces. We now have local marketplaces to kind of reproduce the experience we can have in the shopping streets of the city center. Every shops have been gathered on marketplaces that are online and that are proposing their different products. And then you can, in one basket, shop and do your shopping in those different shops, but online, at home or at work, and then have one basket delivered to your house or get it through click and collect. And there were one platform in Rennes, for instance, called Local, with 2K, developing that concept. And there have been many in different parts of France, and that also another way to digitalize the convenience stores, having their own stores, but also gathering their power locally, and to have that taste also of local shopping.
Is that also? Is there a geography for a minute? Is there a change in habits in different countries? I mean, in European countries, you don't do e-commerce the same way in Spain and in France or in the States, or of course, I imagine you have common roots, but what are the specifics?
I would say that what was specific from one country to another, from one lockdown to the other one, in Q2, really Italy and Spain were booming in terms of e-commerce penetration, and at a higher pace than France in terms of new store creation. And whereas in Q4, we've seen that France has caught up that trend, and France was ahead compared to Spain and Italy. And I think that Prestashop figures are quite similar to the markets, as we have 30 to 50% market share in those markets. So that was the main difference. And in terms of merchant habits, but in terms of consumer habits, what we've seen that there was a booming part of new online purchasers purchasing food, plus 50% increase in France, and from 5 to 7.4 million people buying food online in France. Was the same in Spain. And among those new online purchasers, there were a huge part, 40 to 50% of them were senior people. So there was also, we used to say that there were kind of a generational gap between senior and millennials. It's no more the case. And that's the same proportion as well in the US. The 40% of new online shoppers in the US were over 55-year-old.
Yeah. Caroline, is that also still in there, Caroline? Is that also? Do you also observe an older audience among your users?
So we've seen adoption of e-commerce among every all age, I would say. But to give another perspective on what type of behavior COVID accelerated, if we want to compare the different region, is also the cross-border shopping. That's something that is very important for PayPal. Again, one of the core value when we launched to connect consumer and merchants all over the world. And in the region I lead, Spain and Iberia is actually a big cross-border market where merchants receive payment from different countries. France to quite a large extent as well. Italy is maybe a bit more domestic market, but we see that thanks to PayPal, merchants have very clearly increased the acceleration of cross-border from many corridors. So if I take France, the biggest corridor are with UK, US, and China. So interesting to see that PayPal can also accelerate that trend, because when you have a PayPal account in your market, with PayPal you can store all your local funding source. So it works like a digital wallet, where in a physical wallet you have all your preferred payment instruments, and that's key because research has proven that 60% of people claim that their favorite payment method is critical for them to make a decision to buy or not to buy. So that's why for us it's important to give access to all your local funding source when you shop online and when you shop abroad. And maybe in going back to the third party pickup or delivery in so in France, by the way, we have that third party pickup, which is the relais colis, which is very, very specific to France. So yes, obviously we've seen a lot of delivery and shipment switching to those method. But we have seen also other interesting new trends in the online shopping and online payments. One is the adoption of social commerce. And seeing more and more people shopping on social platform like Facebook or Instagram, and we are always surprised when we see conversion rate online. So even for traditional website, cart abandon is still very high. So you still see 80%, sometimes 90% cart abandon on mobile and on the web. So it's a very strong challenges for websites to find a way to increase conversion and bring back the spontaneity and the impulse you see in store online. And so that trend of shopping on social platform has really picked up as well, because people are more and more connected, more and more on social channel, especially the young generation, and they claim to be willing to pay on those platforms. And PayPal have partnered with Facebook and Instagram to allow safe shopping and safe payments on social channels.
All right. Thank you, Karen. Let's grab a question from the audience, and Cathy Sanchez on social selling. Facebook, for instance, is selling directly, or have its merchants selling directly on its platform. Is that is that something that you see and that you observe, and is that a long-term trend, or what about this phenomenon? Caroline, Alex, will you want to start, and Alexander will
Yeah, I can bounce back on what I said. So yes, definitely it's a trend, and again, it's a great opportunity for online stores that spend a lot of money to drive traffic on their website, and yet again we see so much drop in conversion. So people want to shop in context. We used to use that word, like buying in context, where people are and where they are. Our social platform, again, especially for the young generation. So, we have collaborated with social platform to enable fast and secure shopping, because what is at stake is not necessarily to find a user on the social platform and then drive that person to your website. It's also to enable the purchase to happen on the social platform, what we call a native shopping experience. We have experiences like that live in the US on Instagram. And the conversion rate on those platforms are amazing. So, people are browsing profile of, influencers. They get inspired by what they see, they want to buy. So it's a great way to, again, drive the impulse that you see in store. Something that people don't necessarily realize is how much online purchase in-store purchase is impulse and spontaneous. So 80% of what people buy in a store is impulsive. So it's a product that people didn't intend to buy, and they just get inspired by what they see in the store. And online, it's the contrary. Only 20% of what you buy online isn't planned. And is inspired by what you browse in the online store. So it's critical to bring back those impulse and emotions from the store to online. And again, those social channels are a key lever.
Mm-hmm. Alexandre, you want to add something?
Well, I mean, that's definitely a key trend, but it's not coming from the 2020. It was even before that year that social commerce were introduced by the different social networks. Actually, they behave as new marketplaces. So now you need to integrate as well. You need to integrate with Amazon or the other marketplaces. You need to integrate and sell on those social networks. But I would also differentiate different uses. You have social networks acting as marketplaces, Facebook, Instagram. You have conversational commerce coming with WhatsApp, for instance, still within the Facebook galaxy, but it's another way to do commerce. And you have also either social networks or video platforms introducing live video commerce, which is also something which was booming last year, introduced before, but also very interesting to follow. And that's why at Prestashop we are intensively working with those platforms to better integrate merchants' flows and shops within those social networks and channels.
There was a question for you, Alex, from the audience, also from Alexis Bordet. You can read the question as I read it. How did Prestashop evolve to talk to brick and mortar stores trying to go online for the first time, knowing that this audience of small and medium businesses might not be technical skilled and well aware about the open source community?
Well, it's a really good question. Actually, what we put in place during the first and the second lockdown was a full set of tools to help those SMBs to digitalize. So from a starter pack to have really the basics to go online, to a Facebook based platform to train and network with those merchants. It was Restart from Home program that we've launched in French, in Italian, in Spanish. We also partnered with the French government and other governments in other countries in order to be there alongside their plan for small Bs. And there were plenty of other measures such as viral content to help them go step by step along their journey to go online, and also putting them in touch with the right experts. And we have even open source community of experts that have gathered to propose to those shops. For instance, les Tarés du Vrac, they were equipped and supported by experts, so agencies, freelancers, helping them for free to build their online store during the first lockdown. So there was also a full positive energy and commitment to help those merchants sell and be resilient during that period.
Thank you. Another question, and I went out of remember the name, but it was an interesting question. On, technique services help our merchants to move on click and collect solutions, for instance. You want to start from the beginning. One of you want to take the question?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question. There was connection issue.
It was a question. It went out of my screen, so it's I don't know the name of the person in the audience who was asking for the techniques, services, new solutions to start click and collect scratch. Apparently from a French merchant starting from scratch. You have a few tips for them.
For click and collect?
Yeah. What you must do and you must not do.
Yeah. So maybe Alex, you have insight. As PayPal, we see on our merchants portfolio that trend. So most merchants today accept or offer, let's say, click and collect. For us, what is critical is to make sure it's not opening the door to fraud, and always check who is coming to pick up an item. Protection and fight against fraud is one of the critical assets of PayPal. We are the leader of digital payment, and security, as we discussed, is key for our consumer and merchants. So there are best practices, obviously, around ensuring the package is delivered to the right person. So as a merchant, you also get PayPal seller protection in case something goes wrong. So I would say yes, that's the thing. Make sure that anti-fraud rules are applicable the same as when you deliver to someone directly. I don't hear you.
Sorry, I was on mute again. It's a question from Peter Paraskov for both of you, I imagine. Shipping costs are growing up. Shipping from the US to France can be a good idea depending of the value of your product. In his case, his company is shipping inside Europe, and sometimes it's better to ship a whole container to France and then dispatch and shipping per piece from the Netherlands, for example. Do you have an opinion on that?
So for PayPal, shipping is I would say is an extension of our business. Like our core business is payment, but we've made some great announcements around some shipping solutions. So the first one was 3 or 4 years ago when we introduced free return shipping. So it's not for the shipping to the consumer, but actually shipping back in case there is a return. And we made return shipping free for consumer when they shop with PayPal everywhere. So you can also get a free return shipping on a package you purchase, I don't know, from France to Sweden or China or US, which is a great advantage for our consumer, but also our merchants, because some of them tend to pay that amount, and now we take it at our charge. On the shipping, the direct shipping to the consumer, we also announced a partnership with Packlink in Europe. So as part of our new PayPal commerce platform, which is a new platform open platform for merchants to get access to every payment method, so PayPal wallet, but also card. You also have that shipping solution with negotiated shipping fees, leveraging the size and the scale of PayPal for our SMB. So I invite everyone to have a look at our new PayPal Commerce Platform benefits, because shipping is one of the benefits we offer on the platform.
What about you, Alexandre? Do you want to comment on that, or?
Yes, for sure. And maybe I'll also come back to the question of click and collect. Well, regarding shipping, I think it's really on a case by case basis that we can answer to that question about the shipping cost. Is it better to ship it or to split it from a country to another? It depends on the product, depending on the taxes as well. And the size and the weight of those products. So I have no direct answer to that question, but I think that would be worthwhile to have a deeper analysis on that. And what I can say that the different e-commerce platforms and Prestashop as well, we have integration with all the shipping solutions. They're international. We announced our European partnership with DHL last year, and also local ones such as La Poste Colissimo, for instance, in France, Correos Express in Spain, or and so on in all the countries. So that also something which is key to have in mind. And there are also different fulfillment solutions that are offered by logistics players connected to Prestashop as well. Coming back to the click and collect, what I would say the does or the do that you could have in mind is just make sure that you can provide or propose to your customers click and collect and book or reserve and collect as well. It could depend on the level of lockdown that you're facing, and to do so you need to have point of sale payment solution that are ready to use and fast to use for your customers, so that you can speed up the queue. And QR codes that was mentioned by Caroline could be interesting for that, for instance. The don't would be to underestimate the organization and in terms of layout in your store, to prepare the orders, the online orders, and to make sure that you can give the right order to the right person at the right pace in the store. And it's all the more important as there were kind of restrictions within the store in terms of flows, because you can have there is a limitation in terms of number of people within the store, and also there is now a limitation in terms of hours with the curfew in France. So if you want to have a great customer turnover within your store, it's good to speed up the processes.
What would be the biggest mistakes that you advise the audience here to avoid, and that you notice from your customers or else, starting a business online
and maybe think that you can continue to manage your orders with a notebook the same way that you might have done with phone calls. You have different tools for you to do so. You can do it via Prestashop back office, and there are other tools that you might use. But at least be really rigorous on that point if you don't want to frustrate your customers and have long queues.
There was a piece of advice that would a venture capitalist give to any startup at one time. Every entrepreneur starting is think global from the beginning, and try to the world is your market. Is that still true today, or would you advise differently? Alexandre, and then Caroline will follow up.
I mean, it's completely true. And e-commerce is also bringing that to those new merchants. the ability to go national first. Of course, they need to remain local, and that the first aim to continue to address the local customers, but they can go national and they can even go international. And that's really critical especially for France and the French economy, to have great SMBs or even mid-market companies, the one that we are addressing with Prestashop, to go outside the borders. And we are a great platform to do so. We are proposing local payment methods, local logistic methods in each and every countries, because we are working with local communities of businesses to address the local needs, but we can also help other companies from other countries to localize in those countries. In the end, e-commerce remains commerce, and commerce is local. So either if you want to be relevant in another country, you need to become local in that new country. And so I don't want to say global, I want to say multi-local. And that's really part of the e-commerce DNA in the end, to come back to that type of roots. And being global is not only to be translated or to provide the right currency and the right taxes. It also to give the feeling to your customer that you really understand his uses. And that's also interesting. That's why we are proposing all the local payment methods for LATAM, for Eastern Europe, for Germany, for Northern Europe, within Prestashop Checkout, for instance, that we built with PayPal.
Yeah,
do you agree?
I think, as I said, in our case, Crossborder is inherent to PayPal and to commerce, and I think it's a luck for merchants today to have access to all those services that help globalize from day one, whether it's PayPal or Prestashop or the social platform. And it's quite often we're talking with a small business that realize that they have opened new markets without really being super active. And with all the Google Analytics great insight, you can see where is your audience coming from, and sometimes you don't realize that yes, you see people coming to your website from different markets, UK, US, Canada. So it's important to be able to serve those customers. And I think word of mouth is also more and more important. And they are like official influencer, I would say, but your consumer now have an opportunity to become your influencer and your advocate and talk about your service on social media. And they will open for you new pocket of opportunity, new pocket of consumer. And if you are ready to go and serve those new prospects, that's a chance. And that's a chance, especially when you are in the physical commerce. I would say that, services, it depends. But like, when you see services like, food, local tourism, they didn't have that luck necessarily. So I would say when there is no real constraints on the borders, it's a chance to be able to increase your markets across countries.
Caroline, Laurence from San Francisco has a question for you and asks for any specific trends for e-commerce that you see in the US that don't see yet in Europe and in France.
So what is interesting is I'll come back to the what we call buy now pay later now, which is becoming very common and very popular on website. The ability to split your payments in 3 or 4 times, which allow the payment flexibility to be unregulated and not considered as credit. And that's something we've seen emerge in France, like paiement en 3 fois sans frais is like an habit in French that was an habit in store that became popular online. And I remember we worked pretty early on that habit at PayPal, and now we see it becoming massive in the US. So I would say maybe France has led the way in the buy now pay later trend. And we are very happy, to have launched a solution for our PayPal consumers, as I was saying. On On the other side, I think, there are a lot of trends that start in the US, like social commerce is much more developed in the US. There are more tools. QR code, we talked about it. We really see a big adoption of QR code payments in the US, and hopefully we're going to see the same coming in our countries in Europe.
I had a question also for Alexandre. You're a French company, French Pépite, as we call you, the small companies with high growth. Being a French company, is that an advantage or sometimes a problem? Is it, for instance, an advantage when you try to convince your French customers here with the European regulations on data and privacy, or do you manage that on both sides of the Atlantic and in a fluent way?
I mean, it's the strengths. Clearly, we're not just French; we are European, and we're open source. So we are able to understand the complexity and the diversity of the different countries, the different geographies. I spoke about languages, currencies, taxes, as well regulations, and we proposed that directly to our merchants back in 2018 about the GDPR, for instance. And I mean that is strength because it's part of our DNA to have that diversity directly into our software, and that's why also we're strong into internationalizing our merchants, and on the other side, it's also part of our DNA to be community based. So I spoke about local communities. It's local open source communities made of merchants, developers working together to build e-commerce. So it's also a strength because we're not entering a country with a one-fits-all strategy. It's always case by case and driven by local needs and by local people, which are part of that community. And last but not least, I mean, we are a global company made of 300,000 merchants that are generating 20 billion euros GMV. So I'm very happy to have merchants strengthening their e-commerce on Prestashop, and all together in France, for instance, they're number 2 player in the market. So it's not small. I would say it's quite big.
One last question from Peter, a B2B payment, quite a technical question, but I think it's very important. Is there a possibility to connect a credit insurance API in order to check the customer's credit score in real time? It could be very helpful when you were dealing with high quantities, big quantities. Somebody want to jump on that?
So, I can see the question. So for now, talking about our buy now, pay later solutions to delay the payment, it's for consumers. So it's not for businesses yet. And yes, we have that challenge in France where there is no credit bureau for French consumer, where it's different in other markets. So it's much more complicated to underwrite a French consumer, whether it's a consumer or a business. And that's why, we are lucky to have 20 years of history on our user base, 20 years of data that are purely used for an internal usage, and especially to score those customers and allow them to get access to.
Oh. You froze again, Caroline, I think. Sorry about that. I hope we can catch you later. Well, it's almost the end of our session. Sorry, we lost you for a few seconds, Caroline. But
I think I'm back, but I lost you.
Let me ask you just a wrap-up question to both of you. are you, very basic, are you optimistic or pessimistic for this coming year in terms of business? Alexandre
So I'm
and
Caroline first.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm usually optimistic. So I'm optimistic also because our merchants are optimistic. So we've done a survey of our SMB. So thousands of SMB answered to the survey, and even though they don't see a fast return to normal, somehow they are optimistic about the opportunities that are in front of us. Obviously, our consumer base is mostly online businesses. So I think this is a group of businesses that when they could took the advantage of the situation. As Alexandre said, was not the case for all industries like travel. We talked about music festival that was much more complicated. But again, when it comes to digital goods, particularly groceries, I saw children products were also had a strong growth. Beauty and health. So all those sectors, have led the growth and are quite optimistic. So I want to be optimistic, and our job is really to continue seizing those opportunities and helping the one that we can help. Pushing donation, as I told you, generosity is a big part of PayPal business. So we want to continue, supporting the one that are in big need.
Alexandre, you want to?
I'm really optimistic regarding the digitalization of the economy and what it would bring to businesses and even job markets. I mean, it's really great to have the trend in place. I mean, now we can have I would say part of the businesses are stronger to face that type of crisis thanks to their digitalization. There is still room for improvement, but we have really stepped up during 2020, and it's also optimistic regarding the job creations. There will be plenty of jobs. There are high value jobs in the digital economy for digital product managers, developers, and so on. And that's where we can really build an edge and maybe come back in the game, especially for Europe. So on that part, I'm really optimistic.
Okay, well, that's it's nice to end with a very positive note. Thank you very much for both of you for this conversation. It was great to have you, and we'll leave the last word to Laurence if she could come back on stage. Laurence, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gilles.
Thank you. So thank you very much, Alexandre and Caroline, for your time and the very interesting insight. Thank you, Gilles, for the perfect moderation as well. The video of the interview will be in replay, so you'll have the possibility to watch it again, of course. We hope that you enjoyed the session. Thank you very much for being here today. The next edition, the 11th edition of France versus Silicon Valley, will be announced soon. And in the meantime, we hope that you are all going to be well and safe. See you soon. Thank you very much.